The betrayal hit me like a physical blow when I heard them planning it. Mia, my fiancé of 3 years, and Ethan, my supposed best friend since college, were excitedly discussing an elaborate Sweet 16 party for Mia's daughter Lily, scheduled precisely on my 30th birthday. A familiar pain was reborn inside me, that same hollow ache I'd felt whenever my own birthdays were forgotten growing up. "So we're confirmed for the venue on the 17th?" Mia asked, her voice animated in a way I rarely heard anymore. She was hunched over her laptop at our kitchen island, dark hair falling around her face as she typed furiously. "Absolutely," Ethan replied, his arm casually draped over the back of her chair as he leaned in to look at the screen. "I called them this morning. They said we can start setting up at noon." I stood frozen in the doorway, the grocery bags heavy in my hands. The crinkling of the plastic seemed to echo in my ears as I shifted my weight. "Hey," I said, forcing a smile as I moved into the kitchen. The sharp scent of Mia's ginger tea mingled with Ethan's cologne, creating a strange, cloying combination that made my nostrils flare. They both looked up, startled. For a brief moment, guilt flashed across Mia's face before she recovered with a bright smile. "Jake, you're home early. Ethan stopped by to help with Lily's party planning." I nodded, setting the bags down on the counter. My fingers trembled slightly as I started unpacking groceries. "The 17th, huh? That's going to be a big day?" There was a beat of silence. I could feel Ethan shift uncomfortably behind me. "Yeah, Sweet 16 is a big deal," Mia replied, her voice carefully neutral. "Lily's so excited." I turned, leaning against the counter, waiting. The refrigerator hummed loudly in the silence. "You know what else is on the 17th? I finally asked, my voice quieter than I intended. Mia's brow furrowed for a moment before her eyes widened in realization. "Oh, your birthday, right?" The casual dismissal stung worse than if she'd forgotten entirely. I watched as she exchanged a quick glance with Ethan. "We can do something small for you the weekend after," she offered, already turning back to the laptop. "Maybe dinner at that Italian place you like?" I swallowed hard, the taste of disappointment bitter on my tongue. "Sure, that sounds fine." Ethan cleared his throat, suddenly very interested in his phone. "So, about the catering," he said to Mia, effectively changing the subject. "I got a quote from that place we talked about." I quietly continued unpacking groceries, listening as they debated appetizers and cake flavors. The cold items chilled my fingers as I methodically placed them in the refrigerator, the door sealing with a soft, satisfying thunk each time. "We still need someone to give a speech," Mia said after a while. "Something really special to commemorate the day." "What about Jake?" Ethan suggested, as if suddenly remembering I was in the room. "He's great with words." Mia brightened. "That's perfect, Jake, would you? Lily would love it." I turned to face them, forcing my expression to remain neutral despite the anger burning in my chest. "I'd be happy to," I said. "I'll write something special." "You're the best," Mia beamed, her attention already drifting back to the party plans. I nodded, a quiet power move forming in my mind. "I'll make sure it mentions everyone who's important to her." Later that night, after Ethan had gone and Mia was in the shower, I sat in our home office staring at the blank document on my screen. The gentle clicking of my keyboard was the only sound as I typed the first line of what would become both a heartfelt speech for a 16-year-old girl and the beginning of the end for my relationship with Mia. The party planning consumed the next 2 weeks. Every conversation, every dinner, every moment seemed to revolve around Lily's Sweet 16. I watched as Mia poured her heart, soul, and apparently our bank account into making it perfect. Each evening, she'd excitedly recount new details to me. The vintage Polaroid guest book, the professional photographer, the custom playlist. while I nodded and smiled appropriately, the invisible countdown to my forgotten birthday ticking louder in my head with each passing day. My first real hint at how far things had gone came when I was paying bills online. The sharp, cold shock of seeing our joint account balance had dropped by over $20,000 jolted through me like I'd touched a live wire. I frantically checked the transaction history, my heart pounding against my ribs, and found a single withdrawal to a local luxury car dealership 2 days prior. I was still staring at the screen, stunned, when I heard Mia's key in the lock. The familiar sound of her heels clicked across the hardwood as she entered, accompanied by the rustling of shopping bags. "Mia," I called, my voice strained. "Can you come here for a minute?" "Just a sec," she called back cheerfully. I heard her set down her bags and the metallic jingle of her bracelets as she removed her jacket. When she appeared in the doorway of the office, her cheeks were flushed from the cool autumn air, her dark hair slightly wind-blown. The sharp citrus scent of her perfume filled the small room as she approached, standing behind me to look at the screen. "What's up?" she asked, then fell silent as she saw what I was looking at. $20,000, I said quietly. "Were you planning to mention this to me?" She sighed, a sound that somehow managed to convey that I was being unreasonable. "It's for Lily's car. I was going to tell you." "Her car?" I echoed, swiveling in my chair to face her. "You spent $20,000 from our joint account on a car without discussing it with me?" Mia crossed her arms defensively. "It's not like I emptied the account. And it's not just from me. Ethan contributed too." My stomach dropped. "Ethan? What does Ethan have to do with buying your daughter a car?" She shrugged, avoiding my gaze. "He offered to help. He's done really well with his investment firm, and he knows how much this means to Lily." So my supposed best friend is buying my fiancé's daughter a car, using partly our joint savings, and neither of you thought to mention this to me? The betrayal cut deeper with each word. "Don't make this weird, Jake," Mia said, her voice taking on that edge it got when she was feeling cornered. "Ethan's been in Lily's life since she was 12. He's practically family." "And what am I?" I asked quietly. Mia's expression softened slightly. "You're my fiancé, but you know Lily and Ethan have a special bond. He's been like a father figure to her." The words knocked the air from my lungs. In the 4 years I'd been with Mia, I'd done everything I could to be a good stepfather to Lily. I'd attended every school event, helped with homework, taught her to drive in my old sedan, yet somehow Ethan had usurped that role without me even noticing. "I see," was all I could manage to say. Mia seemed to take my quiet response as acceptance. She leaned down to kiss my cheek, her hair brushing against my face. "It's going to be such a great surprise. We're having it delivered the morning of the party." After she left the room, I sat motionless, the faint hum of the computer fan the only sound. Then, with careful deliberation, I opened a new browser tab and logged into my personal bank account. With a few clicks, I transferred my entire next paycheck, money that would have gone into our joint account, into my private savings. It wasn't much compared to what had been spent on the car, but it was a start. As I worked on the speech for Lily's party that night, I made my second quiet power move. I wrote a beautiful tribute to her relationship with her mother, her grandparents, her friends, and even her teachers. I crafted touching anecdotes and heartfelt wishes for her future. What I didn't write, with careful and deliberate precision, was a single mention of Ethan's name. The next betrayal came 3 days later, when Mia left her phone on the kitchen counter while she showered. I'd never been the type to snoop, but the constant notifications chiming drew my attention. Text after text from Ethan, discussing meeting times and surprise plans. My curiosity ignited. I picked up the phone. the screen illuminated with their conversation history. What I saw made my blood run cold. Not just plans for Lily's party, but lunch dates, private jokes, and references to conversations I knew nothing about. Nothing explicitly romantic, but the familiarity stung. The message currently displayed read, "Jake still doesn't suspect anything about the big surprise, right?" My fingers tightened around the phone. Whatever big surprise they were planning, I was sure it wasn't for my benefit. I set the phone down exactly as I'd found it and moved to the living room, settling onto the couch just as I heard the shower turn off. When Mia emerged in her robe, her hair wrapped in a towel, she smiled at me. "Everything okay? You look tense." "Just tired," I lied, my voice surprisingly steady despite the storm brewing inside me. "Tough day at work?" She nodded sympathetically. "I'm meeting Ethan for lunch tomorrow to finalize some party details. Do you want to join us?" The casual way she mentioned it, as if their lunch dates were the most normal thing in the world, made me wonder how long this had been going on. The soft cotton of the couch cushion bunched under my fingers as I gripped it. "Can't," I replied. "Deadline for the Henderson project." "Too bad," she said, not sounding particularly disappointed. "Oh, by the way, don't forget we have the cake tasting Saturday morning." I nodded, watching as she retreated to our bedroom. The distant sound of her hairdryer created white noise that matched the static in my brain as I tried to process what was happening to my relationship. Saturday arrived with a crisp autumn chill. The bakery was warm and inviting, the rich scent of vanilla and sugar enveloping us as we entered. My stomach lurched when I saw Ethan already waiting at the table, looking perfectly at home. "There you guys are," he said cheerfully, standing to give Mia a quick hug. The familiar way his hand lingered on her lower back didn't escape my notice. "Sorry we're late," Mia replied, settling into the chair beside him. "Lily couldn't decide what to wear to brunch with her friends." I took the remaining seat across from them, the small, round table suddenly feeling like a vast expanse. A glass of water sat before each place setting, condensation beading on the outside. I traced a pattern through the moisture with my finger, focusing on the cool sensation rather than the burning in my chest. The baker, a cheerful woman with flour dusting her apron, brought out tray after tray of cake samples. I watched as Mia and Ethan excitedly tasted each one, their heads bent close together as they debated flavors. The buttercream frosting's sickly sweetness coated my tongue, turning my stomach. "What do you think of the raspberry filling, Jake?" Mia asked, finally remembering I was there. I shrugged. "It's fine." "Just fine?" Ethan laughed. "Come on, man, show a little enthusiasm, this is important." I fixed him with a level stare. "For a 16-year-old's birthday party, sure." An uncomfortable silence fell over the table. Mia cleared her throat. "Speaking of birthdays, we should figure out what we're doing for yours next weekend." The casual afterthought was like a slap in the face. "Don't worry about it," I said, keeping my voice light. "It's not like turning 30 is a big deal or anything." Ethan chuckled, leaning towards Mia. "See? Told you he doesn't need a big celebration." My hand froze mid-reach for another sample. "What's that supposed to mean?" Ethan looked startled, as if he'd forgotten I could hear him. "Just that, you've never been big on birthdays. Not like Lily, this sweet 16 means everything to her." "And how would you know what birthdays mean to me?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. Mia jumped in, clearly trying to diffuse the tension. "Jake's just tired from all the work on his Henderson project. Let's try the chocolate ganache next." I fell silent, watching as they resumed their excited cake debate. The baker caught my eye briefly, a flash of sympathy crossing her face before she turned away. Later that night, unable to sleep, I found myself in our home office again. Mia had left her laptop open, and I noticed a folder on the desktop labeled Lily's College. Curious, I opened it to find dozens of documents, application essays, recommendation letters, and financial aid forms, all meticulously organized. What shocked me was seeing Ethan's name on many of the documents as a reference or advisor. The crushing weight of understanding settled over me. While I'd been working overtime to contribute to our household and Lily's future, Ethan had been playing the role of devoted father figure, helping with college applications, planning her birthday, buying her a car, all with Mia's enthusiastic approval. I closed the laptop and moved to the bookshelf, pulling down a photo album I rarely looked at. It contained pictures from before I met Mia, photos she'd shown me once when we first started dating. Flipping through the pages, I stopped cold at a series of images I'd somehow never noticed before. Mia and Ethan together at a beach, at a party, arms around each other, looking far more intimate than mere friends. My hands trembled as I carefully returned the album to its place. How long had they known each other before I came into the picture? Had there been something between them back then? The questions multiplied, each one driving the knife of suspicion deeper. With careful determination, I sat down at my desk and opened my personal laptop. The gentle whirring as it powered on was oddly comforting in the silent house. I opened the speech document for Lily's party and made a few strategic edits, ensuring that the carefully crafted words celebrated every meaningful relationship in her life, except the one with Ethan. Then I opened my email and drafted a message to my bank, requesting information about removing Mia from my personal accounts and credit cards. The quiet clicking of the keys felt like small acts of liberation with each letter typed. By the time I finally went to bed, slipping carefully under the covers so as not to wake Mia, I had formulated a plan. I would wait, observe, and prepare. The party was still a week away. My birthday, and the reckoning it would bring, was coming, whether they chose to acknowledge it or not. The week leading up to the dual events, Lily's sweet 16 and my forgotten 30th, passed in a blur of preparations and revelations. Each day seemed to bring a new discovery. Another piece of evidence that my place in this family was far more tenuous than I'd believed. On Tuesday, I came home early from work to find Ethan's car in our driveway. Pausing at the front door, I could hear laughter from inside, Mia's musical chuckle and Ethan's deeper rumble. Instead of entering immediately, I quietly moved to the living room window, peering through a gap in the curtains. They sat at the dining table, photo albums spread between them, heads close together as they pointed and reminisced. The casual intimacy of the scene made my stomach clench. I watched as Ethan placed his hand over Mia's, giving it a squeeze that lingered too long to be merely friendly. "God, I can't believe how young we were," Mia said, her voice easily carrying through the partially open window. The crisp autumn air carried her words to me with perfect clarity. "Yeah, seems like another lifetime," Ethan replied, "before careers and responsibilities and—" "Jake." Mia finished for him, and they both laughed. The sound of their shared amusement at my expense sliced through me. I backed away from the window, my shoes crunching softly on the fallen leaves beneath. Taking a deep breath of the cool air, I composed myself before loudly approaching the front door, making sure my keys jangled obviously as I entered. "I'm home," I called out, affecting surprise at finding Ethan there. "Oh, hey man, didn't expect to see you today." They had hastily closed the photo albums, Mia's cheeks slightly flushed. "Ethan brought over some old pictures for the slideshow presentation at Lily's party," she explained. "We thought it would be nice to include some from when she was little." I nodded, setting down my laptop bag. "Great idea. Mind if I take a look? I could use some material for the speech." They exchanged a quick glance that spoke volumes. "Actually, we just finished," Ethan said, standing. I should get going anyway. Conference call in half an hour. I forced a smile. Too bad. Next time. After Ethan left, Mia busied herself tidying up the dining table, carefully stacking the photo albums. I noticed she didn't offer to show them to me again. You two seem to be having fun reminiscing, I commented, keeping my tone light. Mia shrugged, not meeting my eyes. Just looking at old memories. Ethan's known Lily since she was a baby, you know. They have a special bond. How did you two meet again? I asked, suddenly realizing I couldn't recall the story, or if I'd ever heard it. She hesitated just a fraction of a second. Through mutual friends in college, I've told you that. Right, I said, letting it drop for now. How's the party planning coming along? Her expression brightened, clearly relieved by the change of subject. Great. The DJ confirmed, and the decorations are being delivered tomorrow. Oh, and the dress Lily wanted was on back order, but Ethan pulled some strings with a client who owns the boutique. Of course he did. That's nice of him. He's always been so generous, Mia said, a softness in her voice that made my jaw clench. Especially with Lily. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. The familiar scent of Mia's perfume mingled with a lingering trace of Ethan's cologne in the room, creating a nauseating combination that seemed to symbolize their entanglement in my life. That night I lay awake beside Mia, listening to her steady breathing. My mind raced, connecting dots I should have seen long ago. The late-night texts, the private lunches, the inside jokes, the ease with which Ethan had inserted himself into our family life. Not as my friend, but as a replacement for me. The next morning I made my third quiet power move. While Mia was in the shower, I called the venue where Lily's party would be held. Hi, this is Jake Morgan, fiancé of Mia Chen. I'm helping with Lily's Sweet 16 this weekend, I explained to the coordinator. I wanted to check on the multimedia setup for the event. Of course, Mr. Morgan. Mr. Wilson has arranged for a projector and screen for the slideshow presentation. Mr. Wilson. Ethan. Of course. Perfect. I'll be handling the actual presentation and speech, I said firmly. I just wanted to make sure I bring the right equipment for my laptop to connect. No problem. We'll have all the necessary adapters ready. Mr. Wilson mentioned you're a writer. We're all looking forward to the speech. I thanked her and hung up, a grim satisfaction settling over me. At least one part of this party would be entirely under my control. The day before the dual events, I took a personal day from work. While Mia thought I was at the office, I drove to a small jeweler in a neighboring town, one I knew she never visited. The bell above the door jingled softly as I entered, the rich scent of polished wood and leather filling my nostrils. Can I help you? Asked the elderly man behind the counter, his hands bearing the calluses of decades of craftsmanship. I need something special, I explained. A pendant for a 16-year-old girl, something that symbolizes new beginnings. He nodded thoughtfully and brought out several trays. After careful consideration, I selected a delicate silver compass pendant, simple yet elegant. An excellent choice, the jeweler said, placing it in a velvet box. A meaningful gift for someone starting their journey. Can you engrave it? I asked. Of course. What would you like it to say? I thought for a moment. Find your own path. The message was for Lily, but also for me. A reminder that sometimes the hardest journeys are the ones we must take alone. While the jeweler worked on the engraving, I made one more stop, the bank. The cool, professional atmosphere calmed me as I sat across from a personal banker, the slight, lemony scent of furniture polish in the air. I'd like to open a separate account, I explained, and transfer funds from my joint account. The banker nodded, typing efficiently. How much will you be transferring today? Half, I said firmly. Exactly half of what's in the joint account. It wasn't theft. It was self-preservation. The money I'd earned, saved, contributed to our future. A future that now seemed increasingly unlikely to include both Mia and me. By the time I returned home that evening, the foundation for my final act was laid. The speech was perfected, the present wrapped, and my financial independence secured. As I pulled into the driveway, I noticed with grim amusement that Ethan's car was once again parked outside our house. Inside, I found them in the kitchen, Mia stirring a pot on the stove while Ethan leaned against the counter, wine glass in hand. They both looked up with startled expressions when I entered. "Jake," Mia exclaimed, "you're home late." "Had some errands to run," I replied, setting down my keys. The pendant box weighed heavy in my pocket. "Something smells good." "Just pasta," Mia said. "Ethan stopped by to drop off the final timeline for tomorrow." I nodded, noticing a folder on the counter. "Mind if I take a look? Want to make sure I know when my speech is scheduled?" Ethan passed me the folder, our fingers briefly touching in the exchange. "It's all there. You're right before the cake, around 8. I flipped through the pages, noting with bitter amusement that the entire day, my birthday, had been meticulously planned down to the minute for Lily's celebration. Not a single moment had been carved out to acknowledge my milestone. "Looks good," I said, closing the folder. "I need to make a few final edits to the speech. Don't wait dinner on me." In the office, I shut the door and sat at my desk, the weight of tomorrow looming large. My actual 30th birthday would dawn with no celebration, no acknowledgement, while I helped orchestrate an elaborate party for a girl whose life had somehow become more entwined with my best friend than with me. The gentle hum of my computer was the only sound as I opened the speech document one last time. With careful precision, I made the final adjustments to what would be both a heartfelt tribute to a young girl's life and the catalyst for unraveling the web of betrayal that had been woven around me. As midnight approached, I heard Mia knock softly before opening the office door. "You coming to bed?" she asked. "Big day tomorrow?" I nodded, saving the document and shutting down the computer. "Be right there." She hesitated in the doorway. "Your speech is going to be amazing. Lily's so excited about it." "I put my heart into it," I replied truthfully. "It mentions everyone who truly matters to her." Mia smiled, oblivious to the weight behind my words. "That's why you're the best. I love you." "Love you too," I responded automatically, the words feeling hollow in my mouth. As I followed her to our bedroom, I realized that tomorrow, my 30th birthday, would indeed mark a significant turning point in my life, just not in the way I had once imagined. My 30th birthday dawned clear and cold, sunlight streaming through the curtains we'd forgotten to close. For a moment, still half asleep, I wondered if Mia might surprise me with breakfast in bed, a card, anything to acknowledge the day. Instead, I woke to an empty space beside me, and the sound of her on the phone in the kitchen, excitedly discussing last-minute party details. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, the cotton sheets cool against my skin. 30. The age had once seemed so significant, a milestone marking the true beginning of adulthood. Now it felt like just another day, overshadowed by sweet 16 celebrations and hidden betrayals. My phone buzzed with a text message, perhaps a birthday wish. But no, it was from my friend David. "Grabbing coffee before the chaos begins? My treat." I texted back a quick confirmation and dragged myself out of bed. Mia barely looked up as I passed through the kitchen, so engrossed in her call, with Ethan, I presumed, that she didn't notice me leaving. David was waiting at our usual cafe, 2 steaming mugs already on the table. The rich aroma of freshly ground beans filled the air, mingling with the buttery scent of pastries. The familiar environment felt like a momentary sanctuary. "Happy birthday, man," he said as I sat down, sliding a small wrapped package across the table. "The big 3-0. How's it feel?" I shrugged, wrapping my hands around the warm ceramic mug. "Honestly, invisible." David's eyebrows rose. "Mia forget?" "Worse, she remembered, then scheduled Lily's sweet 16 for today anyway, with Ethan's help." Understanding dawned on his face. "Ah, those 2 again?" I looked up sharply. "What do you mean, those 2 again?" David shifted uncomfortably, his fingers tapping against his mug. The gentle percussion seemed to count the seconds of his hesitation. "Look," he finally said, "I didn't want to be the one to tell you this, but maybe you should know. Mia and Ethan, they have history." Though I'd suspected as much, hearing it confirmed made my stomach knot. "What kind of history?" "They dated, for years apparently, before you met her." David's voice was apologetic. "I only found out recently, through Melissa. She went to college with them." The metal chair felt cold and hard beneath me as I absorbed this information. Years? And he's been playing the role of my best friend this whole time? David nodded grimly. From what Melissa said, it was pretty serious. They broke up maybe a year before you and Mia met. I thought of all the times Ethan had been at our home, all the friendly advice he'd given me about my relationship with Mia, all the ways he'd integrated himself into our lives, especially with Lily. "There's more," David continued reluctantly. "Melissa mentioned that Ethan's been backing Mia's interior design business. Those big corporate clients she suddenly started landing last year. All connections through Ethan's investment firm." The revelation hit me like a physical blow. Mia had attributed her business success to her own networking and talent. I'd been so proud of her, never questioning how a small, local designer had suddenly attracted national clients. "So he's been financially supporting her, too," I said flatly. "While I've been thinking we're building a life together." David reached across the table, his hand briefly touching my arm in a gesture of solidarity. "I'm sorry, man. I should have told you sooner." I shook my head. "Not your fault. I should have seen it." We sat in silence for a moment, the cafe bustling around us, life continuing normally while mine seemed to fracture into before and after. "What are you going to do?" David finally asked. I took a slow sip of my coffee, the bitter liquid matching my mood. "I'm giving a speech at Lily's party tonight. I've been working on it for weeks." And I'm going to deliver exactly what I promised, a speech that mentions everyone who truly matters in Lily's life. I met his gaze steadily. "But there's something else you should know." David listened intently as I revealed what few people knew, that my freelance writing job was actually much more significant than I'd let on. For years, I'd been ghostwriting for celebrities, politicians, and business leaders, crafting speeches and memoirs that had topped bestseller lists and made headlines. "Wait," David interrupted. "You're telling me you wrote Senator Hamilton's inauguration speech, and that best-selling memoir by that tech billionaire?" I nodded, a small smile tugging at my lips despite everything. "Among others. I'm bound by NDAs, so I keep it quiet. Mia knows I write, but she has no idea for whom or how successful I've been." "So you're like a writing wizard behind the curtain for half of America's elite?" David looked impressed. "Why keep that secret from Mia?" I shrugged, tracing a pattern in the condensation on the table. At first, it was just professionalism. Then, as I became more successful, I liked having something that was just mine. I've been saving most of the money, was planning to surprise her with a down payment on a house for her birthday next month. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. "The point is," I continued, "I have connections that have quietly been helping Mia's business, too. Referrals I've made, introductions at events. She has no idea those clients came through me rather than her own networking." David let out a low whistle. "So, while Ethan's been playing financial fairy godfather openly, you've been doing the same behind the scenes?" "Difference is, I did it because I love her and believed in our future," I said, the words bitter on my tongue. "Not to establish some claim on her and her daughter." After coffee, I returned home to find the house empty. A note on the counter informed me that Mia had gone to help set up the venue and would meet me there at 6. No mention of my birthday, not even in passing. Alone in the quiet house, I opened my laptop and composed several emails to contacts I'd cultivated over the years, influential figures in the design and architecture world who'd been referring business to Mia at my suggestion. The messages were carefully worded, not vindictive but clear. Due to a personal situation, I could no longer personally vouch for Mia Chen Designs with the same enthusiasm. The professional tapping of my keyboard provided a satisfying soundtrack as I systematically began the process of disentangling my life from Mia's. Not with dramatic confrontations or accusations, but with quiet, deliberate actions that would speak far louder than any words could. At 5:30, I dressed in my best suit, charcoal gray, with a deep blue tie that Lily had once told me brought out my eyes. The pendant box and birthday card for her were carefully tucked into my inner pocket. The speech, printed on high-quality paper, went into a leather portfolio. As I adjusted my tie in the mirror, I studied my reflection. 30 years old today. The milestone felt significant, but not in the way I'd anticipated. Instead of celebrating a decade marker on a path shared with someone I loved, I was marking the moment I reclaimed my self-respect. The venue, an upscale event space downtown, was transformed with twinkling lights and elegant decorations in Lily's favorite colors. Mia spotted me as I entered and hurried over, looking stunning in a deep red dress that accentuated her figure. The familiar scent of her perfume wrapped around me as she leaned in for a quick kiss. "You look amazing," she said, straightening my already straight tie. "Is that the speech?" She nodded toward the portfolio. "It is," I confirmed. "Where's the birthday girl?" "Getting some final touches on her makeup. She's so excited about your speech, Jake." Mia squeezed my arm. "This means so much to her." I smiled, the expression not quite reaching my eyes. "Glad I could contribute." As guests began to arrive, I positioned myself near the multimedia station, confirming with the technician that everything was ready for my presentation. Across the room, I spotted Ethan greeting people, playing co-host as if he had every right. The steel band of my watch felt cool against my wrist as I checked the time. 1 hour until my speech. Lily made her entrance to applause and cheers, radiant in a floor-length gown that transformed her from the girl I'd known into a young woman on the cusp of adulthood. Seeing her genuine joy as she embraced friends and family, I felt a momentary pang of guilt about what was to come. But then I reminded myself, my speech would celebrate her. It would honor her relationships. I was simply being selective about which ones. The evening progressed with dinner, music, and the presentation of gifts. I watched as Ethan proudly led Lily outside to reveal the car. A beautiful late-model sedan with a giant red bow. Her squeal of delight echoed across the parking lot as she threw her arms around him, then Mia in a tearful embrace. I stood at the periphery, smiling and nodding when appropriate, but feeling the chill of exclusion despite the warm evening air. "Isn't it amazing?" Mia whispered when she returned to my side, her eyes bright with excitement. Lily's face when she saw it, priceless." "It's quite a gift," I agreed, keeping my voice neutral. The crisp night air carried the scent of the venue's flowering gardens, sweet and cloying like the false pretenses surrounding me. "I'm sure she'll remember this birthday forever." "That's the plan," Ethan chimed in, appearing beside us with 2 champagne flutes. He handed one to Mia, noticeably empty-handed for me. "Nothing but the best for our girl." Our girl. The casual ownership in his words made my jaw clench. "The DJ says we're ready for your speech whenever you are," Mia said, touching my arm lightly. "Are you good to go?" I nodded, patting the portfolio tucked under my arm. "Absolutely. Just need a minute with the tech team for the slideshow." As I walked away, I heard Ethan murmur something that made Mia laugh, the sound following me like an echo of all I was about to lose and gain. The DJ announced me with a flourish, and the crowd quieted as I took my position at the small podium. Lily sat at the center table, her eyes shining with anticipation. The pendant box weighed heavy in my pocket as I set up my notes and gave a nod to the technician. "For those who don't know me," I began, my voice steady and clear, "I'm Jake, Mia's fiancé. I've had the privilege of watching Lily grow from a bright-eyed 12-year-old into the remarkable young woman we celebrate tonight." The first slide appeared on the screen behind me, a photo of Lily and Mia from when I first met them, both smiling broadly at the camera. 16 years ago today, Mia became a mother," I continued, watching as Mia's expression softened at the memory. "And from that moment on, she has poured her heart and soul into raising this exceptional young lady." The slideshow progressed through carefully selected images. Lily with her grandparents, with school friends, with her favorite teachers. Each photo was accompanied by a personal anecdote, a memory that highlighted the relationship while subtly emphasizing their importance in her life. The audience responded with warm laughter and occasional misty eyes. What was conspicuously absent, of course, was any mention or image of Ethan. As the speech continued, I noticed his smile becoming increasingly fixed, his eyes darting between the screen and me with growing confusion. "Lily has been blessed with a remarkable support system," I said, approaching the conclusion. "Her mother, whose unwavering love and dedication have shaped the person Lily has become. Her grandparents, whose wisdom and generosity have provided both guidance and opportunity. Her friends, who bring laughter and loyalty to her life every day." I paused, making brief eye contact with Ethan before continuing. "Every person in this room has contributed something meaningful to Lily's journey. Each of you has helped her become the confident, intelligent, compassionate young woman who stands before us tonight." The final slide appeared, a recent photo of Lily looking directly at the camera with determination and hope in her eyes. "As you step into this new chapter, Lily," I said, speaking directly to her now, "remember that you carry with you the love of everyone here. You have everything you need to forge your own path and create a future that reflects the amazing person you are." The room erupted in applause as I stepped away from the podium. Lily rushed forward to embrace me, tears sparkling in her eyes. "That was beautiful, Jake," she whispered. "Thank you." Over her shoulder, I could see Ethan's tight expression, the barely contained anger in his eyes as he realized what I'd done. Mia approached, her own expression a mixture of confusion and growing suspicion. "Where was Ethan in all that?" she whispered urgently as she hugged me. "You didn't mention him once?" I met her gaze steadily. "I spoke about everyone who matters most to Lily." Before she could respond, I turned to address the crowd again. "Before we move on to the cake, I have something special for the birthday girl." The room quieted once more as I withdrew the small velvet box from my pocket. "Lily, on this milestone birthday, I wanted to give you something that symbolizes the journey ahead. Something to remind you that while we all walk alongside you, the path you choose is ultimately your own. I opened the box to reveal the compass pendant, its silver surface catching the light. Gasps of appreciation rippled through the audience as Lily's eyes widened. "It's beautiful," she breathed, lifting it carefully from the box. "Turn it over," I instructed gently. She did, reading the engraved message aloud. "Find your own path." Her eyes filled with fresh tears as she looked up at me. "Will you put it on me?" As I fastened the delicate chain around her neck, I was acutely aware of Mia and Ethan watching from the sidelines, their faces a study in conflicting emotions. The pendant settled against Lily's collarbone, catching the light each time she moved. "There's one more thing," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I've established a college fund in your name. While I know your mother and others have been helping with applications, I wanted to ensure that wherever you choose to go, financial concerns won't limit your options." The murmur that went through the crowd was exactly what I'd anticipated. Ethan stepped forward, his face flushed. "That's very generous, Jake," he said, his voice tight. "Mia and I have been working on something similar, actually." "Have you?" I replied mildly. "How nice. Though I should mention this isn't a joint gift. This fund comes solely from me and is entirely in Lily's name." The implication wasn't lost on anyone, least of all Ethan, whose jaw visibly clenched. Mia's eyes darted between us, the first real flicker of alarm crossing her features. The DJ, sensing the tension, quickly announced it was time for cake. As the crowd's attention shifted, Ethan pulled me aside, his fingers digging into my arm. "What the hell was that?" he hissed, his breath hot against my ear. "You deliberately left me out." I shrugged off his grip, straightening my suit jacket. "I mentioned everyone who matters most to Lily. If you feel excluded, perhaps you should ask yourself, why?" "You know damn well why," he growled. "I've been in her life since before I met Mia," I finished for him. "Yes, I recently learned about your history. Funny how neither of you thought to mention that." His face paled slightly. "That was years ago. It has nothing to do with now." "Doesn't it?" I countered, keeping my voice low. "The secret lunches, the private planning sessions, the way you've inserted yourself into every aspect of their lives. Tell me, Ethan, was becoming Lily's surrogate father your way of staying connected to Mia, or just a convenient bonus?" His nostrils flared. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Don't I? I know about the business connections, Ethan. The clients you've been sending her way. The financial support you've provided while pretending to be my friend." The muscle in his jaw twitched. "I was trying to help." "No," I said coldly. "You were trying to replace me. But here's what you don't know. I've been helping Mia's business too, through my own connections. Connections I've now informed that I can no longer personally recommend her services." The flash of panic in his eyes was deeply satisfying. "You can't do that." "I already have." I smiled thinly. "Happy Sweet 16, Ethan. Now, if you'll excuse me, I think they're waiting for us to rejoin the celebration." I walked away, leaving him standing there. The weight that had been pressing on my chest for weeks felt suddenly lighter. The evening continued with cake and dancing, but there was an undercurrent of tension now, electric and unavoidable. As the party wound down, I caught Lily alone for a moment. She fingered the compass pendant thoughtfully. "Jake," she said hesitantly, "is everything okay? Between you and Mom, I mean." I considered her question carefully. Despite everything, I had no desire to tarnish her special day with the ugly truth. "Today isn't about me and your mom," I said gently. "It's about celebrating you. But remember what I said. You have everything you need to forge your own path. That includes making your own judgments about people and situations." She studied me with eyes far too perceptive for 16. "Because of what was missing from your speech, and the way Ethan's been acting since—" I simply nodded, unwilling to say more. She bit her lip, then hugged me fiercely. "Thank you for the pendant, and the college fund, and everything else." "You're welcome, Lily," I said softly. "Happy birthday." As she rejoined her friends, Mia appeared at my side, her expression unreadable. "We need to talk," she said quietly. "After the party." I nodded. "Yes, we do." The drive home from the venue was silent, the tension between us palpable. Mia stared out the passenger window, the passing streetlights casting rhythmic shadows across her face. The car still carried the faint scent of her perfume mixed with the sweet residue of birthday cake, a cloying combination that now seemed symbolic of the false sweetness that had been covering the rot in our relationship. Once home, Mia disappeared into the bedroom to change while I loosened my tie and poured myself a drink in the kitchen. The crystal tumbler felt cool and solid in my hand, the amber liquid catching the light as I swirled it gently. My actual birthday was nearly over, uncelebrated except for David's coffee and small gift. When Mia emerged in yoga pants and a loose sweater, her makeup removed, she looked younger and more vulnerable. For a moment, I felt a pang of the love that had brought us together in the first place. But then I remembered the past weeks of discovery, and my resolve hardened. "You deliberately excluded Ethan tonight," she said, not bothering with preamble as she sat across from me at the kitchen island. "Why?" I took a slow sip of my drink, letting the burn of the alcohol center me. "I mentioned everyone who's truly important in Lily's life." "Ethan is important to her," Mia insisted, her voice rising slightly. "You know that." "Is he?" I countered. "Or is he important to you, and Lily's just a convenient excuse?" Her eyes widened, then narrowed. "What exactly are you implying, Jake?" "I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts. You and Ethan dated for years before you met me. You've maintained an inappropriately close relationship with him throughout our engagement. You've encouraged him to take on a paternal role with Lily that undermines mine." Mia's face flushed. "How did you—" "Find out?" I finished for her. It wasn't difficult. The clues were everywhere once I started looking. The photos, the text messages, the lunches, the shared history you conveniently never mentioned. She pushed a strand of hair behind her ear, a nervous gesture I'd always found endearing. Now it just seemed manipulative. "It was over long before I met you. We're just friends." "Friends don't secretly fund each other's businesses," I said quietly. "Friends don't exclude their friend's fiancé from birthday plans. Friends don't conspire to schedule a teenager's party on their supposed friend's 30th birthday." "That last one hit home." Guilt flashed across her face. "Jake, about your birthday." "Save it," I interrupted, suddenly weary of the excuses I knew were coming. Today made everything perfectly clear. I know where I stand with you and Lily. Or rather, where I don't stand. "That's not fair," she protested. "Lily adores you and I love you. Ethan is just—" "Your backup plan?" I suggested. "The reliable ex who never really went away? The financial safety net you've been keeping in place in case things don't work out with me?" Her silence was more damning than any denial could have been. The refrigerator hummed softly in the background, filling the void between us. "I know about the clients, Mia," I said finally. "Both the ones he's been sending your way, and the ones I have." Confusion creased her brow. "What are you talking about? What clients of yours?" I set down my glass carefully. "Did you really think the Harrington hotel chain just happened to find your small design firm? Or that Senator Collins' wife randomly decided to hire you for their vacation home? Understanding dawned slowly on her face. Those came through you? Along with about half of your high-profile clients over the past 2 years, I confirmed. I've been quietly recommending you to people I work with, people who trust my judgment, or did until now. What do you mean, did? Alarm crept into her voice. I mean, I've informed them that I can no longer personally vouch for your services, I said evenly. Professional integrity concerns. The color drained from her face. You can't do that. Those accounts are half my business. And the other half came from Ethan, I noted. Quite the web of dependence you've been weaving. She stood abruptly, her stool scraping loudly against the floor. This is vindictive and petty, just because you're jealous of my friendship with Ethan. This isn't about jealousy, I cut in, my voice sharper than intended. This is about honesty, respect, basic consideration. You scheduled my milestone birthday as an afterthought, Mia. You let me believe my place in your and Lily's life was secure while systematically undermining it. You allowed your ex-boyfriend to supplant me in every meaningful way. That's not true, she insisted, but her voice lacked conviction. The doorbell rang, interrupting our confrontation. Mia and I stared at each other for a long moment before I moved to answer it. Somehow, I wasn't surprised to find Ethan standing on our porch, his expression a mixture of anger and concern. I need to talk to both of you, he said without greeting, pushing past me into the house. The familiar scent of his cologne filled the entryway, making my nostrils flare with distaste. Mia appeared in the hallway, her eyes red-rimmed. Ethan, this isn't a good time. It's the perfect time, he countered, striding into the living room. Jake's little performance tonight put us all in an awkward position. We need to clear the air. I closed the door and followed them, a strange calm settling over me. By all means, let's clear the air. Let's start with why my supposedly best friend never mentioned he dated my fiancée for years. Ethan's jaw tightened. That was in the past. It wasn't relevant. Wasn't it? I laughed, the sound hollow even to my own ears. Your constant presence in our lives, your financial entanglements with Mia, your role in Lily's life, none of that was influenced by your history. I care about Lily, he insisted. And yes, I care about Mia too, as friends. Friends? I repeated skeptically. Is that why you've been meeting privately with Mia for months? Planning surprises behind my back? Systematically inserting yourself into every aspect of their lives? Mia stepped between us. Stop it, both of you. This is getting out of hand. No, I think we're finally getting to the truth, I said. The truth you've both been so careful to dance around. So tell me, Ethan, what exactly were you hoping to accomplish by becoming indispensable to Mia and Lily while pretending to be my friend? His expression hardened. I was there for them before you, Jake. I've known Lily since she was a baby, and yes, Mia and I have history, but that doesn't mean— It means everything, I interrupted. It means you never stepped back, never gave us space to build our own family. You were always there, lurking at the edges, ready to step in the moment I faltered. That's not fair, Mia protested. Ethan has been nothing but supportive. Of you, certainly, I agreed. Of our relationship, hardly. Tell me, Mia, when was the last time we did anything significant without Ethan's involvement? When was the last time a major decision about Lily didn't include his input? She fell silent, unable to provide an answer that wouldn't damn her further. Ethan moved closer to her, his protective stance speaking volumes. Look, Jake, I understand you're upset about the birthday situation. That was an oversight on our part, and we're sorry. But turning it into this conspiracy theory about me trying to steal your family is ridiculous. Is it? I countered. Then explain the car, Ethan. Explain why you contributed to a $20,000 gift for my future stepdaughter without even mentioning it to me. Explain why you've been helping with her college applications, when that should have been my role as her soon-to-be stepfather. Because he knows her better, Mia blurted out, then immediately looked like she regretted the words. The silence that followed was deafening. I nodded slowly, the final piece clicking into place. And there it is, I said quietly. The truth we've been dancing around. Despite 4 years together, despite everything I've done to be a father to Lily, you still consider Ethan more of a parent to her than me. Jake, I didn't mean— Yes, you did, I interrupted. And that's fine. It clarifies everything. Ethan stepped forward, his expression softening into something that looked disturbingly like pity. Jake, man, we can work this out. We've all been friends for too long to let this come between us. Friends? I echoed incredulously. Is that what we are, Ethan? Because from where I'm standing, you've been playing a very different role. One that has nothing to do with friendship and everything to do with waiting for your chance to reclaim what you think should be yours. His expression confirmed my suspicion before he could deny it. Mia looked between us, her face a mask of confusion and growing dismay. That's not true, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. Ethan and I are just— Just what, Mia? I asked gently. What exactly are you? Because it's becoming increasingly clear that just friends doesn't begin to cover it. Ethan's hand came to rest on Mia's shoulder, a gesture so natural and familiar that it spoke volumes about their true relationship. The heavy scent of his cologne seemed to fill the room, making it difficult to breathe. Jake, he began, his tone conciliatory, I think we all need to calm down and discuss this rationally. No one is trying to replace you or push you out. Really? I raised an eyebrow. Then why did neither of you mention your romantic history? Why the secret meetings? Why systematically position yourself as more important to Lily than me? Mia's eyes filled with tears. It wasn't like that. We weren't trying to hurt you. Intention doesn't change impact, I said softly. The fact remains, today, my 30th birthday. I watched my fiancée and supposed best friend celebrate a milestone with my future stepdaughter in a way that deliberately excluded me from the narrative. The speech was petty, Ethan muttered. You knew exactly what you were doing. I smiled slightly. Yes, I did. And you both figured it out too late to stop it. Mia stepped away from Ethan's touch, her expression hardening. So, this was all some elaborate revenge plot? The speech, the pendant, the college fund announcement, all to humiliate us publicly? Not revenge, I corrected. Clarity. I needed to see how you both would react when the dynamics shifted, when your carefully maintained fiction was challenged. And now what? Ethan demanded. What's your end game here? I looked between them. These two people who had been central to my life for years. One I had loved and trusted completely. The other I had considered a brother. Both had betrayed me in ways large and small, creating a narrative that relegated me to the periphery of my own life. Now, I said calmly, I walk away. Mia's eyes widened. Jake, no, we can fix this. I love you. Do you? I asked simply. Or do you love the idea of me, the stable, supportive partner who doesn't question the emotional affair you've been having with your ex? It's not an affair, she protested weakly. We haven't— Physically cheated? I finished for her. Perhaps not, but emotionally? The lines have been blurred for a long time, Mia. Ethan stepped forward, his stance almost threatening. You're throwing away 4 years over what? Wounded pride because we forgot your birthday? I laughed, the sound surprising even me. Is that what you think this is about? A forgotten birthday? This is about respect, Ethan, trust, honesty, all the things a relationship needs to survive, and all the things you both systematically undermined. Jake, please, Mia pleaded, reaching for my hand. Don't do this. Think about Lily. I have thought about Lily, I said gently, moving my hand away. That's why the college fund is irrevocable and solely in her name. That's why I wrote a speech that celebrated her without dragging her into the mess you two created. That's why I gave her a reminder to find her own path, away from the manipulations and hidden agendas that have characterized her home life. Mia's face crumpled. We can work through this. Couples therapy, space, whatever you need. I shook my head sadly. The time for that was before you systematically allowed Ethan to replace me in your life. Before you prioritized his role in Lily's life over mine. Before you both conspired to diminish my place in this family. What about your clients? Mia asked suddenly, desperation creeping into her voice. You said you've told them not to work with me. You can fix that. Take it back. The nakedness of her concern for her business rather than our relationship was the final confirmation I needed. I think we're done here, I said quietly. Ethan, I believe you know the way out. Mia, I'll be staying at David's tonight. I'll come by tomorrow to get some things while you're at work. Jake, wait, Ethan called as I moved toward the door. Don't throw away everything over a misunderstanding. I turned, meeting his gaze directly. It's not a misunderstanding when it's deliberate, Ethan. We both know that. And with those words, I walked out the door, leaving behind the life I had thought was mine. The cool night air filled my lungs as I took my first steps toward a future entirely of my own making. Behind me, I heard Mia call my name once more, her voice breaking on the single syllable. I didn't look back. As I drove away, the weight of betrayal still heavy on my shoulders, but somehow lighter than before, I realized something important. My 30th birthday had indeed marked a significant turning point in my life. Just not in the way I had expected. I spent the night at David's place, sleeping fitfully on his couch despite his offer of the guest room. The leather cushions creaked with each movement, the unfamiliar sounds of his apartment building keeping me in a state of half-wakefulness. By dawn, I had made peace with my decision, the clarity of purpose washing over me like the first rays of sunlight through the blinds. David found me in the kitchen, making coffee. The rich aroma filled the small space, providing a moment of normalcy in what had become a surreal existence. You look like hell, he observed, accepting the mug I handed him. The ceramic clinked softly against the counter as he added sugar. Feels appropriate, I replied, taking a sip of the hot, bitter liquid. My life imploded yesterday. Any regrets? He asked, studying my face. I considered the question, the weight of it settling in my chest alongside the dull ache of betrayal. About walking away? No. About not seeing it sooner? Absolutely. David nodded, understanding without needing further explanation. What's next? I go back to the house today to get some essentials, find a temporary place to stay, start the process of disentangling my life from Mia's. You can stay here as long as you need, he offered immediately. I smiled gratefully. Thanks, but I think I need my own space to process everything. The morning passed in a blur of phone calls and practical arrangements. By noon, I had secured a month-to-month lease on a furnished apartment downtown, not far from my office. The efficiency of my progress felt like small victories, each step creating distance between myself and the wreckage of my former life. When I pulled into the driveway of what had been my home, I was relieved to see Mia's car absent. True to routine, she would be at her studio until evening. The house felt unnaturally still as I entered, the familiar scents of home, Mia's candles, the faint, lingering aroma of last night's coffee, now tinged with the knowledge that this was no longer my space. I moved methodically through the rooms, collecting only what was undeniably mine: clothes, personal documents, my laptop, and work materials. In the office, I carefully backed up and then deleted my files from the shared computer, removing all traces of my ghostwriting projects. As I was packing the last of my books, I heard the front door open. Heavy footsteps in the hallway told me it wasn't Mia. "Jake?" Ethan's voice carried from the entryway. "Your car's outside, we need to talk." I continued packing, not bothering to acknowledge his presence until he appeared in the doorway of the spare bedroom. He looked haggard, as though he hadn't slept much better than I had. "There's nothing to talk about," I said calmly, placing another book in the box. "Don't be childish," he snapped. "You've thrown Mia into a tailspin. She was too upset to even go to work today." That gave me pause. "Then where is she?" "At my place," he admitted, then quickly added, "On the couch. She was up all night crying. I couldn't just leave her alone." The irony wasn't lost on me. Less than 24 hours after our confrontation about their inappropriate closeness, Mia had sought comfort in Ethan's home rather than facing me directly. "That seems to be a pattern with you two," I observed, resuming my packing. The cardboard box creaked softly as I placed another heavy book inside. When things get difficult, you turn to each other rather than addressing the actual problems. Ethan ran a hand through his disheveled hair, frustration evident in every line of his body. "Look, I get that you're hurt, but this nuclear option isn't the answer. Mia loves you. Lily adores you. And yet, somehow you've managed to remain central to both their lives in ways that undermine my role," I pointed out. "Funny how that works." He sighed heavily, the scent of his cologne mingling with what I now recognized as Mia's favorite shampoo on his clothes. The combination turned my stomach. "We have history," he said finally. "Mia and I, and yes, Lily too. That doesn't just disappear because you came into the picture." I looked up at him, really looked, and saw the truth he wasn't admitting even to himself. "You never stopped loving her, did you?" The question hung in the air between us, the silence speaking volumes. Ethan's expression shifted, defiance melting into something more vulnerable. "It doesn't matter," he said finally. "She chose you." "Did she?" I challenged. "Or did she just add me to her life without ever truly letting you go?" He had no answer for that. I closed the box and taped it shut, the ripping sound of the packing tape punctuating the tense silence. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, straightening to face him fully. "I'm going to finish packing my things and leave. Mia and I will sort out the practical details of separating our lives through lawyers if necessary. You can finally have what you've clearly wanted all along. Her, Lily, the role of devoted family man." "It's not that simple," Ethan protested. "No one was trying to push you out." "Weren't you?" I raised an eyebrow. "Every time you stepped in to handle something that should have been my responsibility, every time you created an experience that excluded me, every time you reinforced your history with them while minimizing my present, what exactly would you call that?" He had the grace to look uncomfortable. "That wasn't the intention." "Again, intention doesn't change impact," I said, echoing my words from the night before. "The result is the same regardless of what you tell yourselves." "So that's it?" he demanded. "You're just walking away after 4 years?" I picked up the box, its weight substantial but manageable. "I'm choosing not to stay where I'm not valued. There's a difference." As I moved past him toward the door, he grabbed my arm. "What about your clients? The ones you've told not to work with Mia? That's her livelihood, Jake." I carefully removed his hand from my arm. "My clients make their own decisions based on my professional recommendations. If Mia's business suffers because I can no longer in good conscience recommend her services, that's a natural consequence of her actions, not vindictiveness on my part. She'll have to downsize her studio," he said desperately. "Maybe even let staff go." Then perhaps you should step up with more financial support, I suggested coolly, since you've been so eager to play that role already. His face flushed with anger. You know I can't replace all those clients. Not my problem anymore, I replied simply. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have more packing to do. I moved past him into the hallway, but his next words stopped me cold. She was going to leave you anyway. I turned slowly, the box still in my arms. What? Ethan's expression was a mixture of defiance and something that might have been regret. After Lily goes to college next year. Mia's been talking about it for months. She doesn't think you're right for her long term. The revelation should have hurt more than it did. Instead, it merely confirmed what I'd already suspected, that my place in their lives had always been conditional, temporary. And let me guess, I said, my voice steady despite the churning in my gut. You were waiting in the wings, ready to step back into your old role. He didn't deny it. Thank you, I said, surprising us both. For what? He asked warily. For confirming that I'm making the right decision. For making it absolutely clear that neither of you deserved my loyalty. I continued down the hallway, my steps lighter despite the weight of the box in my arms. Behind me, I heard Ethan curse softly, then the sound of something being knocked over. I didn't turn back. In the kitchen, I set down the box and took one last look around the space where I'd cooked countless meals, shared morning coffees, planned a future that now would never come to be. The afternoon sunlight streamed through the windows, catching dust motes in golden beams that seemed to illuminate the emptiness I'd been living with for longer than I'd realized. My phone buzzed with a text from Mia. Please don't do this. We can work it out. I love you. I stared at the screen, the words blurring slightly. With deliberate calm, I typed my response. No. Just one word. Simple. Final. Liberating. As I loaded the last of my boxes into my car, the weight of betrayal still pressed heavy on my shoulders. But alongside, it was something new. A sense of possibility, of paths yet untaken stretching before me. My 30th birthday had indeed marked the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. Just not in the way any of us had anticipated,